Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based event and wedding photographer Taveshima Ayede. At the last recording, we did some more riffing on the purpose of a business and Peter Drucker's idea is basically about the purpose of a business being to create a customer and how we can achieve that through marketing and innovation. Now, one interesting thing is, I'm currently giving classes more on the photography side than on the sales side. And one of my students noticed that my cameras are both close to a decade old, and so basically his comment was, why don't you change your camera? So there were lots of angles that he tried to come at it through, my using old cameras, and then he asked that isn't business all about innovation? So why aren't you innovating and getting new cameras? And then he capped it off by saying, or is it that photography is not a serious business for me, or is it a hobby? So anyway, I addressed him and we spoke about a couple of issues about the wisdom of acquiring new cameras when you need new cameras. But I just thought that there are a couple of strains there that I would like to discuss on the podcast, because I know that it's not just wedding photographers that suffer from this kind of what should I call it, malaise, but it applies to our brothers and sisters who are doing other things as well. Because I've noticed that bakers, bakers, they like getting the shiniest and brightest. Get uh, um, you know brand new measuring spoons, get the new super powerful cake mixer 3000, and so we photographers, we have our issues. You have to buy the latest Canon this, Nikon this, and looks like cake people also have that thing going on as well. Anyway, so yeah, I know that it's a um, gosh, it's something that befalls not just wedding photographers, and so that's why I want to talk about today. So I mentioned a little bit about what innovation entails in the context of trying to create a customer, but I now want to speak about innovation in the wider context. So the fact that you have an old school oven does not mean you are not being innovative, and the fact that you have a 10-year-old camera or a 20-year-old camera does not mean that you are not being innovative, because the innovation that is going to come in the course of your business as a wedding photographer, you will find that a lot of the innovation is going to come around your understanding of light, how to use light, how to shape light, how to compose your picture, how to expose, how to frame your photo. That is where the innovation and the evolution of style is going to come from. It's from finessing all these technical aspects, and it's the same thing for whether you're a wedding planner, or, to stick with the people that I'm picking on today, if you are a cake artist. So it's not about whether you have the best or the latest oven or the latest cake mixer, or you're using measuring spoons that are plastic and that you've been using since you were NYSC, instead of getting the latest golden trimmed measuring spoons that have been endorsed by what's his name, Buddy Guy, that New York baker. I can't remember his name anyway. The cake guy, was it the cake master? So it's not about that. Your innovation is going to come from the recipes, your blending techniques, your mixing techniques, your sugar sculpting techniques, your fondant game, all that technical stuff. I'm not a cake person, so forgive me if I'm using the wrong terms, but that is where your innovation is going to come from. It's going to come from the finesse, how you play around with the technicalities to get your own sense of style. And more often than not, it has very little to do with what your gear is. So if you are a photographer out there and you've been using your gear for 10 years, don't lose heart. If you want to get the newest and the latest Canon, whatever, or Nikon, whatever, and you can afford to, then by all means, go ahead. Whatever makes you happy, because I've noticed that it seems to inspire people with confidence when they head out saying, "I have the latest Nikon 7 something something something." It's 5,000 megapixels, blah blah blah. It costs 2 million naira. Seems to make them feel, makes them stand well. And if that's the sort of thing that will make you stand well, package well, arrange yourself well, and you think it's going to help in your business, then by all means. But then again, if you are the photographer or the cake person who has been using the same gas oven since NYSC, then it's not necessarily a problem. So, of course, time will come for upgrades and things like that when the business need determines so. For instance, there's an acquaintance, Sweet Treats, Ijoma. Now, I first met Ijoma Sweet Treats. I mean, she's now really big in Abuja, but I first met her in Lagos a long time ago, where she was the bridesmaid at a friend's wedding. And if you haven't met her before, you should. She's a really nice lady, but she has the fortune or misfortune of looking like a doppelganger for Genevieve Naji. In fact, at the time, my brother was handling the video. At the time, we thought, wow, this is quite a wedding. Genevieve has showed up. But anyway, it's not Genevieve, it's just Ijoma. So at the time, I moved to Abuja and I find out that Ijoma is based in Abuja as well. Went to see her 1 or 2 times at her old place anyway. And yeah, she was one of those people that was using one of those, old school gas ovens. But now, more clientele. Instagram is blowing up. The client base is increasing. Things like that. So she now has a swanky new residence, and I haven't gone into the kitchen, but I walked by, and it looks like everything back there is top notch. It's not how it used to be back when she was in Use. I think was Zone 6. I think that's Zone 6 or Zone 5, with a porter cabin outside the house. The porter cabin was not even padded. So of course you can imagine using an old school gas oven in a porter cabin that is not padded, and then it's sunny outside. I mean, that place, that thing was as hot as hell. I wonder how they survived back then when she was running the business with, was it her cousin? I can't remember. There was somebody used to hang around. I think the person was family somehow. So yes, as your business evolves and things grow, then there will be need to acquire what the latest and the greatest is on the market. But just like in Ijoma's case, Ijoma Sweet Treats, you can see that it's the business needs that determined. So in the beginning, you're still hustling, you're still doing your thing. If Popsy says, use my porter cabin, no wahala, just make sure everything is safe, don't burn down the house, then, by all means, do that. Old school oven in a porter cabin. But then eventually, you're making some money, your profile increases, there's better cash flow, you get the new residence, you get the new baking spoons, you get the new cake mixer, 6,000, you just get everything and splurge. So it's going to be the same thing with those of you who are wedding photographers as well. Now, I don't think MCs have the same hang up that we do, because their tool of trade is their mouth. So, okay, maybe they do. Maybe for them it will be what kind of suits you wear. But bottom line is, don't measure innovation by the gear that you have. Measure the innovation in your craft according to the level of sophistication and creativity that you're bringing to the business. So if you are a photographer and you want to innovate in your product and its your service and its delivery, you should be looking at how well are you lighting, composing, what's your editing style like. Those are the sort of things you should be paying attention to. And if you're a cake artist, it's the same thing. So don't worry that your equipment is old and it's the same thing you've been using since secondary school or NYSC. Just pay attention, make sure that your game, that your cake game, it's on point. It's the same thing with another friend of mine. Okay, well, I haven't spoken to her in a long time, maybe I think close to 2 years now. But Lolade of Dainty Affairs. Now, back when Patience and I were getting married, Patience is my wife, was Lola of Dainty Affairs who handled our cake. So back then, smaller setup. She used to do a lot of the baking herself. Was nothing fancy, but her craft was on point. In fact, I told her that it's a pity that her cakes look really good. That it's almost a shame to eat the cakes because her cakes just look like they were built, they were made to be looked at, and so that was her thing. So even though she was working out of her house, I think back then they lived off of Allen Avenue. Yeah, they lived off of Allen, one of those streets that's just before Alade Market. So yeah, nothing glamorous at the time, but she kept it innovative, not because she had the greatest and the best, but because she was always studying and she was trying to up her game. And so today she will, all those things they do. You take sugar, you melt it down, and there's a way that you mix it with something, and you build it up, and before you know it, you have sculpted a swan or something like that to put on the cake, and all these fancy things that you cake people do. So that is where true innovation is going to come from in your product and in your service, and it's not necessarily about what kind of gear that you have. So forgive me for going off on a rant, but it's something that really chafes at me, and that's why I'm coming up here again to say this. And yes, if you meet me at any of our in-person sessions, it's something that might come up again, because for some reason I don't know where this madness comes from, that everybody assumes that if you don't have the latest and the best and the greatest, then you're not serious in your business and you're not innovating. So your equipment is not what you're innovating in. You're innovating in sorry, excuse me, the cold is finally leaving. So you're innovating in your service delivery, your product delivery, your service delivery. That's where the innovation is, and it's not necessarily in your gear. But remember, like I said, if you're one of those people that if you have the latest and the greatest, it makes you feel confident, and so because of that, you can approach anybody. You can stand you can stand in front of Buhari and justify your price because you feel like you're carrying the 5 million naira camera. If that works for you, then by all means go ahead, buy that 5 million naira camera. But if you don't have the 5 mil, don't kill yourself. It doesn't mean you're not innovating. If you can't afford that brand new oven, don't kill yourself. It doesn't mean that you're not they are not innovating. I mentioned two names of people who do stellar work as bakers, and they're people that they're accessible to us. Really nice people. Okay, well, Ijoma still holds down a 9 to 5, so she's really, really busy these days. But at functions where they speak and things like that, they have no problem with sharing aspects of their story. So if you're ever at any forums where either of them is talking, then if you think what I'm saying doesn't add up, ask them questions and they'll be frank about these sorts of things. So yeah, that's it. Let me stop. I'm just repeating myself. It's not your gear. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. I will catch you guys at the next recording.